These Ipswich Town players are defying the odds.
Welcome back to TWTV for another video verdict with me, Jim Cooper, outside the back of the Sir Alf Ramsey stand, Portman Road, for another look back on an Ipswich Town game as we struggle through the Premier League.
Yes.
And I'm joined by the editor and man behind TWTD.co.uk, Phil Ham. Phil, welcome.
Hello, yes. We meet again in
we meet again.
Miserable circumstances.
There's a theme, isn't there, Phil?
Yeah.
A theme of yes. And I think today, Phil, the narrative was, we can't call it a must-win, but it probably was. A game where we had expectation, and frankly, for a lot of the first half, the expectation was fulfilled, and we felt like it was great to be watching Town dominate a team at times and be on top. But we've really let ourselves go in a couple of moments, and we've not secured what would have been a crucial 3 points. In fact, we haven't even got a point, which would have actually made a big difference to the table.
No.
Give us your sort of summary, the view, the game, please, Phil.
Well, yes, as you say, it's so important to beat the teams around you when you're in the situation that we're in. And Southampton obviously gone into this game 6 points, won only one game in the Premier League all season. The new manager hadn't won in the league. And we've come out as losing 2-1. But at the same time, we were probably the better team. I don't think there's too much doubt about it. We were better than them in this game, more than we were in either of the two games we won last season, which is because I thought they were the better team in both matches. But we managed to kind of find a way to win those games, and unfortunately we seem to be finding a way to lose matches at the moment when we're when we're playing well. I mean, it was a very different game from the last few. We took a very different approach from Liverpool and Man City, and going back to Chelsea and Arsenal and Brighton and one or two others, where we kind of went for more of a more attacking lineup with a kind of three behind Liam Delap and three of Hutchinson and Ciso and Nathan Broadhead. And actually, we started the game very positively. I don't think we created many serious chances early on, but we were the ones on the front foot. We were the ones dominating controlling the game, and of course they then ran up the other end and scored with their first opportunity, which when you look at it was a bit of a mess really defensively. Muric will feel that you could clearly see on the screen afterwards that he definitely felt he should have done better.
Do you think there was some slight deflection as it came through to him that offsided him a little bit, or was
I didn't see that, but it's possible.
Is it? I wondered if it hit something a little bit before, but I mean the people around me, and I think generally the vibe in the ground was Muric error and perhaps some Muric error later on, which we'll come back to.
But errors earlier on as well, really, because the sort of fella down I think it was Kyle Walker-Peters was in loads of space down the right. Someone made a move. Fernandez made a move out, didn't he? And kind of and Jacob Green's got a heel on it, but on the cross, but could only send it to Aribo, who was sort of unmarked on the penalty spot. So I think a lot of error in that. Kieran McKenna in his press conference talked about the two goals being soft goals, and I think he's absolutely right. And really, other than those two, you can't think of too many other opportunities that Southampton had in the entire game, really, can you?
And in fact, in that first half, Phil, they were making a lot of unforced errors. They were kicking the ball into touch.
Harwood Bellis. I thought, I didn't know whether they'd taken him off injured or just because he was just out of sorts.
They looked really out of sorts. They looked like a team at the bottom, a team that had, was really low on confidence. But they had a couple of quality players. You mentioned Walker-Peters and Fernandes there, and that's the problem in this league, is that if you give space, give an opportunity, then you can get punished. And even though Saints are lowly, we sort of gave them those two moments. We've got a section after this with Kallum where we'll go into quite a bit more detail on some of the aspects of the game and the player performance. I think one thing we thought, Phil, and just to unpack with you, is we've got these three smaller players behind Delap. I'm not sure at times whether we've got quite the attacking guile. There's a lot of good intent, isn't there? Although we're still giving a lot of turnover in those three. There's a lot of ball turnover we're giving away a bit cheaply. But I'm not sure what the system is sometimes going forward. Talk us through what you saw about the attacking side of our game today. Do you think there was enough? Have you talked a lot about some chances there?
I think Kieran mentioned in his press conference about Southampton giving you a lot of space.
Yep.
And I think he wanted to use that space by Hutchinson and Ciso and Broadhead running into that space, and actually I thought it worked to a degree in as much as they all three had, and Delap as well, all had opportunities to run at the defence and caused them problems. I think one of the issues with all three of them, perhaps Ciso and Hutchinson more than others, was that they kind of ran into trouble too often. They should have released the ball earlier, which I think we've talked about before. Hutchinson early in the season, it sort of tended to do that too often. And in the second half, Philigen, I think he did pretty much the same sort of thing when he came on. Now, I think obviously that's part of their game, is running at people, winning fouls, and although we probably should have won more fouls today. I thought there was one certainly on Hutchinson in the first half, which was a blatant kind of foul just outside the area. And going past people and creating opportunities from there. So I think there was definitely that there were positives and negatives to that side of their games. But also I think that, and Kieran referenced this in his press conference, that Ciso and Philigen have come into the squad. They're still kind of finding their feet, learning how the team play, new teammates and all that kind of thing. So you won't necessarily be as cohesive as they might be in a month, 2 months time.
That's a really good point, isn't it? Again, I think we're saying that they kind of run down alleyways a little bit today, and Ciso and Philigen, as you said when he came on, and then get a bit surrounded. But there aren't some of those great partnerships that we've known for seasons, like Burns and Chaplin connecting and things like that. I think you were alluding there that Broadhead, actually, of the three, was probably the one that was having a little bit more space, but was being a bit more effective. He was doing something with the ball afterwards.
I mean, Broadhead, I think, and funnily enough, one of the national journalists said to me, Broadhead he thought he was really excellent. But you look at his performance will kind of be downgraded, as it were, or viewed from the fact that he missed two excellent chances. Which really, if he'd have taken that chance straight after, I mean, obviously he also set up Liam Delap's goal. We have to point this out. Stabbed it through, and Delap used his pace and finished confidently. But then the chance soon after, which I think was Delap played Broadhead through, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think Broadhead's finishing maybe never has been quite as convincing as Delap, certainly, and one or two other people. But maybe this time last year, when he was in his pomp, was scoring regularly, I think he probably would have taken that chance. I thought a little chip was perhaps the wrong decision at that moment. And then the chance just before half-time, when the ball fell to him, I think he just took too many touches. And if he'd have hit it first time, and again, that's probably a sign of a bit of lack of confidence in front of goal, that he's not scored this season. And
I think just a couple of things there is, firstly, Delap himself, as you said, he's just an excellent finisher. I thought he really, for me, added to everyone's understanding of how good he is today, because he went through sometimes one-on-one for a younger striker. It's not always the best thing. Took it brilliantly.
Yeah, didn't look any doubt, did they?
And as I said, we'll talk about Kallum later. Is you could see his price just notching up again a little bit.
And also he gave Bedenek such a hard time, and I think he probably he was booked in 74th minute, but I think he could have been booked a couple of times before that, to be honest, because some of the challenges were fairly agricultural and just hauling him back, and
they were having to, weren't they? I mean, he's so strong going back, isn't he, Phil? But also some of these small touches he's got, the one he does outside the outside of his foot to bring it
just
down.
Lays it
they
off
don't know what to do with him, and he is the real deal. But I think you were talking about the Broadhead chance there. I felt like the crowd were good today in the first half. They were with the project. They were kind of urging us on. But I think everyone felt that I was really feeling we need that second goal here. We need to build on this dominance that we were having.
Yeah, and I think if Broadhead had scored just before half time, and Kieran McKenna said this in his press conference, that it felt like we should have been going in 2-1 up. He didn't specifically mention that chance himself, but that they'd kind of had opportunities and that we were the better team, and I don't think that's unfair. I think that would have been not an unfair situation to be in. Second half, I thought we took a little while to get going. I'm trying to kind of remember how we started the second half, but we had a spell where we were on top, and then we had a bit of momentum, and there were a couple of chances, wasn't there? There was one where Delap shot from a tight angle when I think he'd probably better off cutting the ball back, because I think Hutchinson and Cissé were in the middle. And then there was another one where Hutchinson cut the ball across to Broadhead, and it sort of, I think it bobbled up to him and it caught his knees and went through to the keeper. But at that point, you felt that the momentum was with us, and we were kind of getting into the second half. But then at that point we subbed Broadhead, and I can't, might have been another change at that point as well. And then there were the kind of succession of substitutions of both teams, and I thought that kind of knocked our impetus.
I think there were two things. Firstly, I don't think we came out that strongly because they'd made a switch, hadn't they? And I think the Ipswich players were sitting back to see what that meant. We didn't start strongly. Yeah. They then started to go down a lot. Yeah. So they were slowing it through, cramps and hamstrings going down.
The fella that came on went off again immediately, didn't he?
I mean, it was 9 minutes of extra time, and they were playing the dark arts, and it just slowed the crowd and slowed the momentum of our play. And I think you're right. The subs came in, and there was a lot of substitutions. So there was just a huge amount of flux. There's just a huge amount of flux.
So the game lost its kind of flow, and I think then we struggled a bit in that period to kind of bring the ball out into their half, and we were kind of losing a lot around halfway or just inside, but without them really threatening until they got their goal.
And it was just a bit of a basket case, that whole thing. I think Sky was saying that Muric sort of plumbed it into the danger zone, not out. If you know what I mean.
I think that's right. It's one of these things. If a goalkeeper saves the ball sort of quite a long way down to their right, you want them to push it out of play. But of course, if it's that difficult to save, then they're not always able to do that. But I think in that circumstance, he probably should have been able to get it out to the right. And so another frustrating day for the goalkeeper back in the team.
Yeah. And did McKenna mention the injury to Walton?
Christian Walton, he said he's out for what did he say? It was quite a number of weeks, unfortunately, with the groin strain that he picked up at.
And it's a shame because I think, after the Spurs result, do you remember Morsey pushed Muric towards the away fans, and the away fans greeted him, and we felt like we were in a good place with the keeper, and there's definitely some negativity towards him for the crowd. And I think, to be frank, the Shroud have just got to stick with him. It must be so frustrating for Ipswich supporters to see these minor errors that are costing so much.
He's going to be the keeper for the next few weeks at least.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I imagine Kieran Slicker will probably, I guess, has been penciled in for next week's game at Coventry in the FA Cup, but whether they sort of switch it round and give Muric another week,
just
another
to kind of build some
but
confidence.
But having said that, I'm not convinced that they would on the grounds that if he picks up an injury, we've only then got Slicker. So
a couple of things on just to finish off there. So I think, for me, I was sitting there and speaking to people in J Block, just thinking, I felt like we just got to score early in that second half. Do you know what I mean? I felt like we were suddenly getting to 70. They were slowing it down, and I felt like it wasn't a game where it was we'd scored late. Does that make sense? I felt like we had to get a goal early because they were slowing the game down. The momentum was going. The subs were free. What do you think about that?
I think it was. I think you have to make the most of the spells when you're on top, don't you? In these games, I think that we didn't create enough chances in the second half. You can't really think of many saves that Ramsdale made other than the one from a tight angle from Delap. I think. I think we probably went in at half time. Yeah, they were applauded off at half time, weren't they? So
yes,
I think
that's right. The
feeling was at half time that it was 1-1, but we'd done well, and that if we carry on as we are, in fact, I think I wrote in my kind of half time bit, Town are well placed to go on to win it, and I think they were. And but that sort of spell that they got on top, they didn't create enough good chances, and then the momentum, they lost the momentum, lost that impetus, and without Southampton really looking particularly good or particularly threatening, Southampton then got a goal. We'd had perhaps a bit of a warning with and I can't think of the guy's name who cut in and shot that was saved, and the substitute who came on the left. We'd had a bit of a warning from him earlier because Axel made a good challenge on him, didn't he? Earlier on, but I think if you kind of look at it as a Southampton perspective, how many chances did they have? 2, and they scored 2 goals. And we can look back and say that we scored 1, but there was a number of, certainly Broadhead's chances are 2 that you would think that Premier League strikers or Premier League forwards really ought to be taking.
And maybe we needed some more chances on top of that with some of the challenges I was talking
but
about.
You need to. I think the thing, and we've kind of watched this over so many months in the Premier League now, that teams don't create huge numbers of chances always in these tight games, and you need to score your chances. And and Kieran references this in his presser as well, that going back, we haven't. There's been tight games. We've not turned tight games into our wins enough, and I think that and we've lost games that we should have won. We can go back to the beginning of the season. We can look through and we go back to Aston Villa. We feel we probably should have won that. Fulham, we were on top in that, probably should have turned that into a win. Man United, Leicester, we should have won that game. Bournemouth, we were 2. Brentford away, we were.
Maybe even first half against Saints away. You know what I mean? We were the better side. I mean, not in the second half, but in the first half there, we felt like we were the better side.
I thought we were the better side there. Kieran said that he thought it was a 50-50 game, but I thought that we were the better team in that match. It was certainly, when you look at the game, and take the goals out, and we were certainly more in control of the game today than we had been in any of the 3 previous games against them, despite the fact we drew 1 and won 2 last year.
Okay, let's start to move on. I think just in terms of player performance, who sort of stood out for you from the town players today?
I think Enciso, kind of his enthusiasm and his kind of wanting to get on the ball. I thought Broadhead again, Delap. He showed, having perhaps had quiet couple of weeks against City and Liverpool, but to some degree, you're sort of toiling away as the lone striker when the opposition's having 70% of the possession, so you're going to struggle to make much of an impression. I thought that. I thought Kajuste
had some moments.
Good game as
again,
well.
When he breaks the, because actually interestingly, Saints dropped quite deep, didn't they? I expected them to come at us more, and that them dropping deep allowed us to come on. It got the crowd going, didn't it? But I think what works so well is when Kajuste does run forward and bring some of the defenders onto him. It's just, and maybe these are the sort of little patterns we need a little bit more. I think we're not breaking the lines enough from the middle field, for example.
As you talked about sort of little layoffs and things, I think Kajuste does similar sort of thing, really, just sort of little nudges on, and it's a good touch. There was one really quite important challenge on Fernandes, I think, in the second half, first half, when he was sort of almost getting in behind. So I thought he was very good as well. That was a really good
tackle. He has got those sliding tackles in him. We haven't seen that many from Kajus so far.
And I thought O'Shea had a good battle with their 6'7"
huge guy. Oh my God, what was his name? He was absolutely massive. I thought the other great player, and we'll talk about this later with Kallum, was Axel Tuanzebe. I thought he's such a good player. He's a real high calibre for us, I think. Okay, anything else from McKenna? Obviously we talked last time. These press conferences must be getting a bit more difficult for him, and it's a bit of a. How's he reacting? What was his vibe again?
He's clearly a bit downcast today because it was obviously a big opportunity missed. He said, it's a very poor result from our perspective, but he felt that positives in it, that we were kind of better, and we were probably the better team. It was the reason that he felt it was a poor result. Sort of isolating the fact that the 3 points were kind of the main thing, was the fact that he felt the game was there for the taking, and that it went exactly as he anticipated, but for not taking chances and allowing them a couple of opportunities that they executed better, we'd be winning. So other than that, he sort of, I asked him to kind of build on or add to what he said on Friday about. Because he said it wasn't a must-win game because there's lots of football to play, and I kind of said, you said that on Friday, and then he kind of sort of said, well, we've obviously had the first half of the season where we're kind of developing into the division. Players are kind of learning division. Then we've had this little spell now where more players are coming in. They're now in that position, and he says, there's still quite a long way to go. So, but it's obviously made our job much harder, I think, because. you've got to win the games against the teams around you. And I know Southampton, it's not really going to kind of put them back into contention to stay up, because they need far more points than that.
And they don't look good enough.
And but it does, that's 3 points, and you'd probably think that Wolves, when they play Southampton, and Leicester, when they play Southampton, they will probably get 3 points against them. So maybe they won't. Maybe Southampton will go on the charge and help us with a few other results. But I think, all we've got to do is do what we've kind of said. We've got to stay in touch with Leicester, stay in touch with Wolves, who were winning last time I looked,
I know.
unfortunately. And we've played both of them, and then obviously we've got to beat them when we play them and pick up other results as well.
We're at a bit of a crossroads, aren't we, Phil? Because we've had the confidence blows of conceding 10 goals and 2 losses against sides we weren't expecting to beat, obviously. So the confidence is a bit fragile. I thought when their second goal went in, there seemed to be a bit of a drop in that confidence. The players did drop. And also, as you said earlier on, we've got this massive flux of a huge influx of, this change of an influx of players. And I think we've just got to almost maybe use the FA Cup game to steady a little bit. Because the danger is that we need to get a win just to get the project going again. And I think it's going to be a big challenge for McKenna, isn't it? To try and keep this going.
It's a big psychological blow, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think
huge.
Because we kind of talked about this as being... not to use the must-win phrase, but it was kind of one of our bankers. It's one of our banker sort of games that you should be winning if you're going to stay up. And unfortunately, we didn't just not win it; we lost it. And so I think there will be a bit of a blow. Coventry next week. I think we'll probably take the usual approach of 11 changes. Maybe people like Enciso and Philogene will start just to sort of get them more
as you said, get Muric a bit more confidence. And as you said, I think Philogene, it's not a good time for him to join at the moment. He's coming into games when the fans were low. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a difficult game for him to come into. I'm just conscious of time, Phil. I think what would be really good is to go across to the TWTD forum, and hear what people are saying on there about the game, and use it for us to close out. Lots of 4-letter words. It's bedlam over there. And in fact, McKenna talked about the forum in this week's press conference, so it obviously has a bit of visibility. But anyway, so first off from Malcolm Blue, woe is me, and it is a low point in the season. It's a depressing result, and I think
probably one of the lowest points in McKenna's management.
I would definitely agree, and I think that's my point, is that woe is me. That's how the fans feel. It's how me and you feel. It's probably what the players will.
And he said that the dressing room is not dissimilar.
How do you then come out of it?
That's when managers earn their corn, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then another one. This is quite interesting from Ciboa. Ponderous, lightweight, indecisive. And I think, just I want to pick out some of these things, because I think you're looking at the game a little bit more positively than me, perhaps. I do think at times we are too slow. There's a ponderous nature to our play. We're not moving it quick enough at times.
I think that's fair enough at times, and I think also perhaps players being integrated into the team, I think that comes into it as well.
You don't have those patterns.
There were periods, there were periods where Enciso and Philogene in particular, I thought when he came on, that they're kind of not really known quite where they should be. Not quite where they should put themselves, or quite where everybody else is. And that's stuff that will come. But
Jack Van Neville, when Jack Clark came on the wing, he does know some of those players around him. But again, he was going into, and there wasn't much service to him. The second part of that was lightweight, and I do think that's the problem with these 3 types of players. Maybe not Enciso so much, but certainly Hutchinson, Broadhead to an extent, Philogene when he came on, they're quite lightweight players, if you know what I mean, and that's where those turnovers are coming.
That's possible. But equally, I think that they are kind of those sorts of players that run at people, win free kicks, and perhaps didn't win the free kicks they perhaps should have done today.
There was a couple of we had, obviously Michael Oliver had a bit of a noise about him because of the red card at Arsenal. But I did think there was a couple of areas for me. I thought that we weren't being protected enough at times. I thought there were the yellows. But the last point from Ciboa was indecisive, and I think that's maybe when it's flowing, when the confidence is there, you make those decisions and you bang, bang, bang. Whereas at the moment, sometimes they'll turn and there's nothing to do. Jack Clark had that, Philogene had it. They're a bit indecisive.
I think there's also a tendency, that's probably fair enough, but equally I think there's a tendency sometimes to be, and I think this is how Town have been under McKenna, is to be patient and look for things. And occasionally I think there was moments where they weren't so patient, that there would be someone would try a kind of cross-field pass that was cut out, because they were trying to force it a little bit more than perhaps they should have done. So I think
that happened 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I think
it's
a bit of both. I think I think perhaps there's sort of a bit of indecision around the probably a bit of confidence lacking because we've not scored huge numbers of goals, we've not won huge numbers of matches lately.
And I think, as I keep saying, we're going to. It's a real danger we get into this confidence spiral. You need confidence in football, and then you become less indecisive.
Exactly, and wins, wins give you confidence. Of course, it's where do you get wins from when you're lacking confidence?
Let's keep going, because again, really, thanks everyone for posting these. It really gives us something good to cling on to and work around. So from Riori, keepers define seasons. I think Murich's errors, and it's not just Murich's errors, it's the relationship with the crowd now. It is quite season defining. It might affect our form. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think goalkeepers are obviously hugely important, and having a goalkeeper that the fans and particularly the team are confident in is hugely important. When we were in the Premier League before, we had Richard Wright the first season, didn't we?
Yeah, superb he was.
Who was superb, and then the second season we had Matteo Sereni and Andy Marshall, who I'm not convinced that the crowd ever had much confidence in either of them, and I don't think the players had enormous. I can remember Herman Hreiderson saying to me that the first game he had at Sunderland, he had a new goalkeeper shouting at him in Italian all game.
Yes, so, that strange transfer for a lot of money.
Not ideal, but yes. So you can certainly see the difference that having a tried and trusted goalkeeper, and I think that's obviously what Kieran went back to with Christian Walton, because he's played with most of those players before. But Muric, it's very difficult to see how he goes now without. If he keeps, if he keeps clean sheets, a number of clean sheets in a row, then I think that will kind of would get everyone's confidence back. But the problem is, in this division, and if you're Ipswich at the moment in this division, you're not going to keep loads of clean sheets because of the standard of the opposition you're facing, and he probably will make another mistake at a goal, whether it is genuinely his mistake or not. People will cite that as his mistake.
That's right. I mean, I know a lot of the people I was at the match with today. They're messaging me now. They're saying, "Hey Jim, we told you about Muric." You know what I mean? Because they're down on him, and I think he's got to build that trust and relationship again. The save at Spurs, the superb save at Brighton that we've all forgotten about. That's how he's going to build that respect from the fans, the confidence, so that people aren't just wobbling a bit whenever the ball comes to him. Let's keep going. Keep Broadhead on from Leighton Buzzard Blue. These are great names, Leighton Buzzard Blue. And I think I was surprised he was the one to come off. Yeah,
it did. I suppose it's kind of like for like. I suppose in that it was Philogene who replaced him, wasn't it, on the left? So, but yes, I thought Broadhead had probably been the more dangerous of the. Enciso had played very well, hadn't he?
Yeah.
But I thought Broadhead had perhaps got into the more dangerous areas. Obviously,
and he seemed to have a little bit more of a bend product and was connecting with people. As you said, he's got the assist for that.
He got the assist, and he had the big chances. So. Yeah, but equally at the same time you want to change it, and if you've got someone who's kind of missed opportunities, do you want to kind of bring someone else on? And obviously Philogene is someone they've brought in for a lot of money, so I don't think Philogene during his period on was as good as Broadhead during his period on.
I mean, he was much further right, wasn't he? But he was trying
it around.
Yeah, he did move. You're right. I mean, Philogene was trying hard. But again, I think you're right. He's just not in the system and gelled in, is he really? Something. I mean, we're just repeating. Len Brennan is repeating some of our points of earlier, which is can't keep possession. And I think I presume that Len is referring to that cheaper turnover that we're getting when we're pushed up against their defence. We aren't, for me, converting ball up the pitch into threat in the box or around the box or into corners. We only had one corner today, Phil.
Did we really?
Which is just remarkable. But I think it's a lot to do with not keeping possession up there.
Yeah. And yes, I mean that's a fair point that we're not turning it into. Yes, I think corners is kind of a good indicator of whether you're kind of keeping under pressure. But then again, at the same time, we were kind of a lot of our play was that sort of fast-paced running at them from deeper, whereas not necessarily. Going to kind of win your corners in the same way as crosses being headed out and all that kind of.
We were quite central as well, weren't we? A lot of the first half. The attack was going through the centre, and we weren't overloading on the wings as much. I think we've seen it from the top sides we've played in the Premier League. They tend to kind of overload one side, don't they? We don't really have that. And we were doing that ourselves in the Championship a little bit. I think there's a little bit more we can do about that.
That's kind of been a way that Kieran has kind of worked over the years with Town. Is that sort of working overloads on. Flanks, and I think we've done it at times. I think that when you play Enciso did kind of what Hutchinson tends to do when he plays in the middle, that he ends up as kind of like a second winger on right flank, which happened a few times in the first half, and perhaps on the other side with Broadhead. But we're quite narrow, aren't we, with the three quite a lot of the time.
That's right. Okay, and then from Troy Criosta, I can't even say it, but apologies. Concentrate on Cup, which I think is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek to say.
Yeah.
Well, forget about the league. Let's just, but just to pick up on that, concentrate on the Cup is maybe Coventry's a chance to just build a bit of momentum and a bit of confidence. And as you said, maybe there won't be as many chances. The full 11 switch to give the B squad a go. Maybe it's a chance, maybe to build a win and build some patterns.
I think they'll certainly look to progress. I suspect that there will be a lot of changes, but maybe not. Maybe some of the newer signings will be involved in that, just to kind of increase their familiarity with the system and their teammates. And I think we have seen with Town over the last 2 or 3 years that when you change all 11, the approach tends to be the same, and the quality doesn't drop enormously.
Yes.
So I think that's probably how he will approach it, and I think all being well, we will probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think Coventry. It'd be interesting. Against Lambert up there, not Lambert, Lampard, and they're having a better season. I think they're in better form, so it'll be an interesting game. Last one from Melb's ITFC could prove fatal, and a bit of a dark one to finish on, but that's the mood.
It's a big blow.
Yeah.
It's not fatal, is it?
Yeah.
But it's a huge blow. I think we all it's not a banker as such, but it's one of those games you looked at and thought, right, we should get 3 points there, and we haven't.
Yeah.
And it's a defeat to a team that's adrift. And
looked at it at times, and I think the probabilities now are swinging right to us. We're in the relegation mire now,
particularly if Wolves have won,
and it's a huge test for McKenna. I mean, I suppose one positive, Phil, is McKenna's stock will be dropping quite a lot. We all trust in him and believe what a great manager.
I think he will to some degree, but at the same time, I think. Wolves beat Villa 2-0.
2-0.
So another frustrating result for us. So,
well, so thanks for all those 3 words. Helpful for us to sort of dissect something a bit difficult, and obviously that could prove fatal. Is a tough one to finish on, but it's true, and it's a real test for McKenna, test for the boys, test for the club, and for the fan base to say, can we turn something around here? Because it would be miraculous if we did survive. Okay, transfer window quickly. Any news? The lack of that other striker or goals is a long-term issue for us.
Yes, I think this is something we failed to do in a number of windows, is to kind of have enough strikers. We found ourselves short on a number of occasions, haven't we, over the last 2 or 3 years. We nearly signed George Hurst one summer, and then he went to Blackburn, and we found ourselves not signing a striker then. I think we went after Will King, didn't we, for a bit. Yes, and similarly, and we brought him in subsequent to that. Then last summer, I think we perhaps found ourselves a bit short again, didn't we, because we lost George Hurst for a little while, and we found ourselves with Caden Jackson starting for a bit just before Christmas, and then brought in Kiefer Moore and Ali Al-Hamadi, and I don't think that they kind of probably would have foreseen themselves having a League 2 striker as their number 2 striker for a period as we were chasing promotion from the Championship. But Kieran, again, as he said on the presser on Friday, he doesn't envisage anyone coming in or coming out. Not impossible. They'll continue to look, but you look around. I've spoken to people. Who would Ipswich? Who do you think Ipswich should sign? And no one really has any big thoughts because there's not that many players out there in the mould that we're after, and other teams haven't signed players of a similar. Very few players of that mould have moved during this window. Yeah,
it's hard to get a striker. I think we're now. It sounds like for McKenna that it's unlikely. And we've got to rely on Delap. We know Delap's the real deal. Hopefully he can last the whole season. He's young. Hurst, I still think, is a quality striker. We need him to play a role, and that's what we're going to need. Okay, Phil, let's continue the joyless happiness of this show by looking at the survival league around us, and it is a really survival league. I remember speaking to James Gowcroft earlier in the season where we were feeling a bit more bullish perhaps and thinking of a higher points finish, but it's going to be very very difficult to get out of the mire. But anyway, we're back to 19th, so we're Saints still below us, but we're just one up from the bottom. Games around us, Everton continue this Moyes renaissance. 4-0 win over Leicester. I think that was a real Dr. Tottenham moment for Leicester, wasn't it? Tottenham gifted them something, but they're clearly, that's a massive a massive win for Everton.
Well, I'm
Because
going to say, only a few weeks ago
Yeah.
we were talking about Everton potentially getting drawn into it. Well, it only
Yeah.
takes a couple of decent results, and they you sort of think, well, they're probably not going to be now. And now Wolves winning 2-0.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think, Everton 4, Leicester 0, it makes you think, because Everton were out Calvin Lewin, so you sort of think the threat was, were they going to get goals?
Yeah,
where did 4
four
goals?
Their main man is not there. I know. And
as you said, Wolves have beaten Villa 2-0. Aston Villa, what are you doing? That's really bad for us. And then... so that's really put us in the mire. I mean, there is a game on tomorrow, Brentford versus Spurs, and maybe Spurs can completely collapse. But they've got enough quality. The defenders will come back eventually.
Yeah, I mean, we have got to play Spurs in a few weeks, haven't we? So
important game for us. I mean,
So,
if we beat Spurs at home, this one gets forgotten, as we know. So in terms of league position, as I said, we're 19th. We've got 16 points. We are 3 points off of Wolves, but the goal difference now -9, I believe. Or
10.
Is it 10?
No, sorry, 11. 11.
Yeah, and we've got 3 wins, 7 draws, and 14.
No, sorry, 9. You're right.
It is. Yeah, so -9 goal difference to Wolves.
Yeah.
3 points ahead of us. We only had 3 wins. Really should have been 4 today. 7 draws and 14 losses, and we're down to 0.58 points per game. And we really need 1, and that's quite a big gulf. So there, we'll close it out, Phil. Such a shame we didn't have a joyous show.
I know. It was a day that started with a lot of expectation, and unfortunately, it's because of that, it's ended up being sort of more miserable than most, unfortunately.
So we'll be back in a moment to have a final segment with Kallum, looking at some of the game detail, some of the player performance, and talk about the atmosphere as well. And Phil, we won't be having a show after Coventry in the FA Cup, but we'll be back at Villa Park to talk about, hopefully we could get a win against Villa like Wolves have done. But we look forward to seeing you then. And as always, if you could like and subscribe to our channel, that'd be fantastic. We'll see you again shortly. Hello and welcome back to another segment with TWTV, where you join me outside the back of the West Stand, Portman Road, for a Ipswich Town self-help group, or should I say a video verdict looking back at Ipswich Town 1, Southampton 2, and I'm joined by Suffolk Live writer and TWTD writer Kallum Brisset to look back on a extremely disappointing result today. Kallum, what's the narrative? I
think you've summed it up.
Yeah,
extremely disappointing. Went into it with a lot of expectation, perhaps, that we needed a win, perhaps. So to come out on the wrong side of the scoreline is obviously bitterly disappointing, and
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, you can see it's going to be quite a maudlin show today. It's extremely disappointing. I mean, I think you said a good point there, you make, Kallum, is, it was one of the games where, a win was an expectation, which hasn't been the case for some time. I know McKenna had downplayed it being a must-win game, but it really was today. Southampton, I thought, looked poor in the first half. They unforced errors, 4 or 5, where they kicked the ball almost into touch. Some quality in Walker Peters and a couple of other players, I thought, and we were doing okay, weren't we? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that first half where we were on top. The crowd was with us. What was going well in that period? Who was standing out for you?
Well, we were doing all right in the game, without creating many kind of clear-cut opportunities, and I think that was in the end where the problem was today. I think, generally speaking, the kind of in possession game and kind of the quality on the ball was there, but the ideas in terms of actually creating chances and looking like we're actually going to score wasn't. And then they don't have many chances in the game. The first one that I can remember is the one that they scored from. They allowed the ball to drop inside the penalty area. I think there's 2 of them inside the 18-yard box unchallenged, and then it ends up going in off Muric, who simply has to do better again, and I'm sure we'll touch on that again, but it feels like every time he plays he's costing us one way or the other. And then from there we're on the back foot. It doesn't take long for us to get back in the game, which is obviously a good positive in terms of the equaliser, but from there we were never banging the door down, looking likely that we were ever going to get a winning goal.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think, around me in J Block just behind us here, we were enjoying the first half up to the point where they scored, because it was great to be back on top, to have more possession, to be playing it around. But I agree, we were like, it wasn't that championship heyday moments where you're having attack after attack, chance after chance.
No, and I think it was much more like it, though. It was certainly the closest we've come to it this season.
Yeah, absolutely.
At Portman Road, in terms of that feeling.
Yeah.
But without the ideas of actually creating that opportunity to score.
Let's actually go through the team itself, pick out the players, and then let's start to go through the performances. And we could talk about the goalkeeper, etc. So just talk us through the selection. Talk about the formation today.
Formation looked, it was a back four again, which I think many of us probably expected to go away from kind of the back 3 or 5 that we've had in the last month or so. Certainly a more attacking formation for the kind of fixture that it was at home, etc. Muric returned in goal. Christian Walton, seemingly not in the squad, must pick up some sort of knock. I'm sure Phil might have some more information on that in a bit. Where were the other changes? Jens Kayuste came back into the midfield, and I thought he looked good. I thought he looked maybe back to his old best. And then the two in the attacking were Enciso, who I thought was probably our brightest player on the pitch. I think he deserves a mention in terms of his performance, perhaps maybe guilty of a bit of tunnel vision at times, but in terms of getting into the opportunities where he was able to pick the pass or find the shot, he was creating them for himself very nicely. And then Nathan Broadhead came back into the side, and I think it was his ball that led to the lap goal. And again, it just wouldn't fall for him when he had the chances inside the penalty area. But I thought I thought they were the right changes. I liked the look of the 11 before the game.
I really like the look of the. I thought it was the right 11 for Southampton, being a team that's having a terrible season, bottom of the table. No win for their new manager. It was a time to play the 4. And I think that tunnel vision point you made, I think Amari had it initially, and Ciso had it sort of through the game, and Broadhead was going down alleyways or getting very well marked. But there is this problem with those smaller players, isn't there? Would you agree? Those 3 that sit behind, they're smaller players. They tend to get a little bit surrounded, and we are still having this problem of giving the ball away. There's just too much turnover, and we're not turning it into real clear-cut chances.
And it's the decision making. It feels like that's something I've said a lot over the last probably 6 weeks or so. It's just when we're getting onto the edge of the box, it's about picking the right pass. Sometimes it's one touch too many and we end up losing the ball, or the pass is the wrong pass, or something like that. And it felt like there was more of that today.
But for me, Kallum, this is are there enough ideas?
I didn't see.
Yeah, we don't see. What is the plan? If you know what I mean, because we're not breaking on teams, are we? Because certainly today we are breaking in other games, but today we were pressed up against them. What was it? Well, we weren't really crosses to the lap. It was so I felt like we were sort of hitting a brick wall, weren't we? We'd get there, we'd have numbers there, but then we wouldn't turn it into many chances. I would say. What do you think? What is the plan?
Our most likely route to goal, particularly in the first half, looked like, and it's easy to say when the actual goal came from this way, but I did think there were a couple of other occasions where it was kind of the drilled through ball into either the centre forward Delap or one of the 2 wide players. And as we say, that's where Delap got his goal from. But other than that, like you say, the actual aerial crosses, I don't think we were going to win stuff in the air. I don't think there was kind of the kind of cutback special that we've become used to. That wasn't there. That wasn't an option.
And just to cut in there, because we don't have Burns now, there isn't the cross ball at all.
No.
There isn't the cross ball to Leaf, because he was quite pinned in by Walker Peters, wasn't he, today? So Leaf wasn't having much joy. So that they have been 2 angles, haven't they? We do cross balls or Leaf breaks on. They weren't working today. So again, it was relying a little bit. I think what I'm saying is, I think we were going through the centre. We were going through the centre a little bit too much, weren't we? We weren't stretching wide or stretching their play. It was a little bit too easy for them, I thought.
And even when we do try and do that, I feel like we switch the play way far too slowly. Feels like other teams are able to shift the ball from right to left in a matter of 2, 3, 4 seconds, and with us it takes 3 or 4 passes, and then the opposition have all shifted themselves across.
That's a really good point. I know we are again, we'll come on to Muric now, but Muric is slow out of the back, isn't he?
On the balance of play, we were clearly a better side. It's just about finding a way to prove it in the scoreline, which is what we're struggling to do at the minute, regardless as to who we're coming up against. It feels like if it was a difficult task to find the goals today, then
we are lacking a consistent threat. We're lacking some ideas up front. When we're getting the ball up forward, we're not leading it to chances, and we're not really getting the opposition really on the back foot. I think that's what's really come out for me today, which I think we'd seen in other games, but these other teams are of a higher calibre, and we kind of expect that. Let's talk about the players. Thanks for taking us through the lineup, but let's talk about some of the players. I thought, again, seeing Axel back fully fit, fantastic. What a player he is. Throughout that game, there were moments where you just saw real quality from him. I mean, he could be playing in a top 6, top 4 team, So he was good. And I thought Delap, great. Who did stand out? Who were the players who come out of that game with heads held high and some positivity?
I thought Enciso was the brightest spark. I think he looked like whenever he was kind of on the ball, he's a positive thinker. Clearly, he's always wanting the positive option. He can beat a man, which I think maybe we lack in this team, and I think it's something that he can do through the middle of the pitch, especially. Look, Kayust in midfield was good. I mean, there were chances for Delap, one or two of them, and he took his chance, the big one, well, in terms of scoring it. But then where else do the chances come from? I feel like if Delap's not there to get the goals, doesn't feel like we've got any other goal scorers in the team.
I mean, we're coming back.
We're
coming back to this point. Let's talk about Delap because I remember seeing him run through. So he's put through from Broadhead, I think you said. He's going through one-on-one the keeper, and I think there's a moment when you see whether a young striker is the real McCoy or not. And I thought he took it so well.
Did.
And I think saw his value notch up another few $100,000 or whatever it may be. But what a moment for him, and what a great moment in the game because we needed it. Got the crowd really ranked them up.
It came at a really much needed time because I think it was about 10 minutes after we went behind. And to get that goal kind of before half time, to get back on level terms, was obviously important. But the disappointment was in the second half. We didn't kick on, and we didn't go on and get that goal and create more chances for Delap. Because as I say, it feels like he's the one who can finish them in this team, and he's not getting masses of chances. It was a game like today that you felt like we could have created a lot of chances for him, but didn't. Yeah,
we didn't create chances for him, and also when he is doing his hold-up play extremely well, again that age-old problem of not having many people around him. Let's look at the match stats. So 57% possession, which sort of sums up. We were on the front foot and on top. Shots, we had 15 to their 9. On target, we had 6 to their 4. There was a Ciso and Hutchison did have some good chances, didn't they? But they took the shots too far away and didn't turn them into really clear-cut chances. And we only had one clear-cut chance and only one corner. I thought that stands out for me again. I think you mentioned this the other week. When you're not up there pushing them and you're not pressing in those waves of sustained pressure, then basically you don't get corners, do you?
No. Especially when the goal we scored last week was from a corner. It would be nice to get some more of those. But, today was decided on open play. I don't think today was a game, for us especially, that was going to be decided on set pieces. And we didn't create enough from open play.
So let's begin to close out. I think Southampton had the dark arts, didn't they? Especially in the second half. Going down for such a long time for cramp, etc. That slowed the atmosphere down. And I think you made a point earlier. We just didn't get go. We needed to score early in the second half. For me, I just started to think when we got to 60, 70 minutes. I thought, whoa. If we don't get a goal here, the pressure's really going to pile on us, and that affected the atmosphere. I thought the atmosphere was good; they responded well to that first half. It was what's the word? A fickle atmosphere in the sense that it was easily going to be turned, wasn't it? Yeah. Any more comment on that?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well. Started well. Obviously, the goal behind affected that, but we were able to score soonish afterwards. But he's easily turned is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I think it was, ready to go, but we didn't give them enough. And then let's end up on some of the weaker performances. I thought, Muric, for me, I thought there was some kind of deflection as the shot came through. But your view is he's got to do a lot better on the first goal.
He just palms it in, from what I could see. and it wasn't good enough.
And the second goal, Muric Sky is sort of saying that he seemed to sort of palm it into the danger area rather than out. Would that be what you took as well?
That's what it looked like. I've seen it back once, and it kind of, he kind of puts it straight into the big centre forward to score. So, another disappointing goalkeeping performance, I think.
And what about the subs?
Lack of ideas, I think especially when we went 2-1 down, I think there was maybe a bit of desperation. It felt like there were 5, 6, 7 attackers on the pitch. Didn't really know who was playing where. We had 2 centre forwards on the pitch. We had Philogene, Hutchinson, Jack Taylor was playing as some kind of 10, Jack Clark on the left almost as a wing back. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think
a bit of confusion.
I think that was a bit strange towards the end. Who was playing Davis's role? Who was left back at that point? It was
probably Jack Clark.
Yeah, it was kind of Jack. I mean, he was basically throwing the kitchen sink at it. Sometimes I think throwing the kitchen sink, like just throwing loads of attacking players, doesn't always work for me. I think sometimes
because players don't know where they are.
Yeah,
they're in completely unfamiliar places. Don't really know what they're being told to do or what they should do, and in the end we didn't have a big chance to equalise at 2-2 after 2-1, and I think that showed.
And so we look ahead, so where do we go from here? I mean, obviously
Coventry.
Coventry in the FA Cup. Hopefully they're sending us to Coventry. Hopefully we'll get a bit of positivity out of that, because clearly after 3 losses on the bounce, conceding 12 goals,
4 losses,
4 losses on the bounce, conceding a large number of goals, the confidence is pretty shot and pretty thin. Hopefully we can build a bit of confidence against Coventry, and then it is Villa away. Where do you see the season going from here?
I mean, we've got to keep the belief, haven't we? But without a positive result in the next few, I think it will start to unwind a bit. Perhaps we can only just hope that maybe Wolves and Leicester obviously lost 4-0 today, which is helpful. Can kind of just hope that results
let's
like
hope
that
that Villa have just kicked off and playing Wolves at home. Hopefully we can do us a favour there. But I just think we've got to try and hold on now. Not start to go into a real run of losses. Try and cling on to the confidence. Try and eke something out, maybe Spurs at home, and just see it. Because at the moment, our probability of going down is just massively ramped up, and probably deservedly so. If you can't beat a team like Southampton, who at times in the first half showed why they were down there, we don't really deserve to stay up. But anyway, we shall end this segment of pure joy and positivity. But this is where we are. We look ahead, and we will see you after the Aston Villa away game. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please like and subscribe.